Hello, everyone. This is Tanya Allen, just coming back to you again with another presentation. This is an adapted presentation from Zaretta Hammond. Zaretta Hammond gave a presentation called Moving Beyond the Packets that was over an hour, and I am going to try to get this to you in less than 15 minutes. So I wanted to start with a video to just kind of inspire what we're trying to do. So obviously from that video, if you've never seen that movie, you may want to check it out. But one of the things that Zaretta Hammond said is we need to think about how we use MacGyver type equity to maintain student cognitive growth. And that's going to be our challenge as we go into this time where we haven't been before in an educational system. So just keep that in mind as we go through the rest of this presentation. First of all, I know, and I have to call out really quickly, some of the barriers, they're in our minds, they're in the front of our minds. So one of our barriers for NEC, we have a large special education population with significant level of needs. We have students that we know may not have the type of support at home to help them with these needs. We have a lack of access concerns with technology. So we have students that aren't accessing or have access to technology that we desperately need them to have access to. We have challenges with the communication. Some of our families obviously do not speak English as a first language. Some of our families do not have phones that consistently work, do not have emails that consistently work, or we're able to connect with them. That's a challenge for us. And last but not least, we have students that are homeless and highly mobile or lack food or shelter, consistency that's needed in a time like today. So what do we want to think about is where can we get ideas from? So in Zaretta Hammond's presentation, what she talked about was different areas and different ideas of learning. So for example, thinking about Montessori education, the unschooling movement, maker education, Waldorf education, and thinking about looking to other ideas to find ways to get us from where we are right now to where we could be in the future. So think about how can I create activities that are more self-directed, that are hands-on, that allow students to play, that allow their interests to drive what they learn, that are problem-based, that are project-based. Thinking about how do we develop our students in an integrated and holistic way. So all of these are different forms of educational models that can give us some suggestions or ideas of how we can move forward. Our primary focus areas that Zaretta Hammond talked about was deepening background knowledge, building cognitive structures, and increasing word wealth. Three big things. One of the first ones being deepening background knowledge. One of the strategies that she talked about was assigning more nonfiction books and building on student interests, not getting stuck on what they're interested in. So if all they like is a certain character, that doesn't matter. Let's focus on what they like and build from there. Encourage students to create videos about what they learn. And for some of our students that are nonverbal, what are some other ways that they can show what they know? Assigning informational TV shows, so like documentaries, nature shows, historical events, Schoolhouse Rock. I sent you guys a video this morning. So thinking about different things that you could show or give them to do that's a part of what's in their world right now. You could also give students a directive with an inquiry sheet. So instead of having so many different types of things, having a focused way of asking key big questions. What was your biggest surprise from watching that TV show? I used to think, but now I think this. Thinking about those things. And last but not least, bringing the community into distance learning. Obviously, our students come from a variety of communities. So, what can we do to bring in where they're coming from into this experience of distance learning? The next thing she talked about was building cognitive structures. So, our goal is to work towards supporting dependent learners into becoming independent learners. And we can do this by creating clear cognitive routines and acting like a personal trainer. So, when you think about if you've ever been someone that ever used a personal trainer, you had to have someone help you to make sure that you're doing those moves correctly. That could be part of the video instruction that comes from teachers and EAs working together to make sure that we're doing the strategies right. We're teaching them the exact way we want them to do it so that they learn the skills that they need to learn. So thinking about this, one example that Soretta Hammond gave was thinking about parts, purposes, and complexity. So having someone take something apart and working to put it back together. And I'm not saying taking something big apart. Obviously, some students would be able to take a calculator or a computer apart and put it back together. But some students, it may just be taking something much more simple apart. Maybe it's taking a pen apart. Maybe it's seeing if it's okay to take a marker apart or something else that's within the home, taking it apart and putting it back together. Another thought that she gave was using sketch notes or Google Drawings to illustrate what they're learning rather than focused traditional notes. So thinking about different ways to help students to take in that information they're receiving. Don't focus so much on grading, but introducing concepts to students. Over time, obviously, we care about grading, we care about assessing, but we also want to make sure that we're introducing concepts to students, allowing them to get comfortable with them, and then looking at, are they now being able to move from the unknown items to the known items? So make sure we're building in that processing time for students. The last thing that she talked about was increasing word wealth. So one of the books that she recommends is The Word Collector by Peter Reynolds. I don't know if we have it in Destiny or not, because I'm sure someone will ask, but I'll check. But one of the things we want to do is increase the word wealth of our students. And let's not do it just our traditional vocab ways, but having students play word games or help design simple games using note cards. So games like Scrabble or Taboo or Heads Up, thinking about different types of word games that you may have ever played. I know I played a game called 60-Second Slam, where in 60 seconds I have to think of words A to Z that I could find in a supermarket aisle. It could be things you'd find in a bathroom or things that you'd find in your closet or things that you'd find anywhere you can imagine outside. So just thinking about how can I come up with different things to do to think about increasing that word wealth for students. Another suggestion she had was creating a weekly scavenger hunt with words and using objects that are around where they live. So thinking about where do they live? Do they live in an apartment? Do they live in a house? What do they have access to? What's something that they could be searching for? Magnetic letters or words to allow for making sentences or poetry. That's something that you could ask for EAs to work to do that for your group of students if you feel this is an appropriate strategy that could be then simply mailed home to families to be able to do this activity. And then if students did have access to a dictionary or access to a Chromebook to look it up on dictionary.com or thesaurus.com, you can have them look up slang words and learn where some of those words come from. So looking at what their language currently is into what their language could be. What's a synonym for that word that you use all the time? Thinking about how do we increase that word wealth. And I know the big question is, how do we do this for our elementary students? How do we do this for A100 students? Think about those creating visual matching exercises to practice words using manila folders. I know this happens already a lot in A100. It may be something to expand with elementary students using similar strategies. Think about whether or not the family is open to planting a seed in a milk carton in a windowsill. When you think about the process of planting a seed or doing some of those things that you do at home, think about how could I build in some other activities centered around this one thing of planting a seed in a milk carton? What's the vocabulary that's involved in that? What are some of the things that you notice from one day to the next or 2 days to day 5? Things like that. Introducing music through homemade instruments. What are some things that we could assemble or put together that would allow families to make instruments at home? And how could we introduce music and make learning fun through doing that? I Spy numbers, sending numbers with Velcro to families for use around the home. So thinking about if a family is open to that, being able to play I Spy since people are having to stay at home with Velcro, with letters or with numbers or with shapes or with colors, different things like that. So just thinking about how could we engage elementary students differently. The other thing is just a placemat based activity. So one based activity that I think of is groups of 10. So taking cards, taking a deck of cards, 50 cents. We could send them out if we need to. Taking a deck of cards and helping kids play number games using cards, playing cards instead of doing math worksheets. So how can we do this? So my practical example is a 5K. Believe it or not, and when I was in high school, when I was in much better shape, I used to run cross country. And in running cross country, my coach taught me you don't start a cross country race, you don't run it overnight. You don't become a cross country runner overnight. You build up to being a cross country runner. You build up to a 5K. So when I decided to try a 5K several years ago, ironically, it was a Cookie Hero 5K. That's a whole nother story because you do get cookies and milk at the end of the race. That's a whole nother story. But I did the Couch to 5K. So I downloaded the app on my phone and it gave me a routine. Do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. And eventually I got to be able to run the 5K. And that's kind of what we're doing. We are not, we're, some of us are trying to think we're going to run this 5K and we've never run a 5K in our lives. And if you've never run a 5K in your life, you can't start off with just running a 5K. We have to slow the process down. So how do we do this? Strategize with a small group. Think about how do I make sure that I am accountable for something, they are accountable for something, that we bring together our collective strengths as individuals. Try one or two new things each week. Don't be afraid to try and fail. It's okay. And then last but not least, share with colleagues. So thank you guys very much. This was a quick run through of Zaretta Hammond's presentation. I'll send you the longer link if you want it, but I hope this was helpful and I hope you found something new that you can put into use in the future. Have a great day.